everyone. Welcome to today's edition of One Single Story, April the 4th, day 94. So we're looking at Judges 14 today. And so Samson has entered your reading at this point in the last, yesterday. Found out he was a Nazirite. He's older at this point in Judges 14. And it says, one day when Samson was in Timnah, one of the Philistine women caught his eye. When he returned home, he told his father and mother, a young Philistine woman in Timnah caught my eye. I want to marry her. Get her for me. His father and mother objected. Isn't there even one woman in our tribe or among all the Israelites you could marry? They asked. Why must you go to the pagan Philistines to find a wife? But Samson told his father, get her for me. She looks good to me. His father and mother didn't realize the Lord was at work in this, creating an opportunity to work against the Philistines who ruled over Israel at that time. So we all know Samson with Delilah. That's the woman that caused him, not the first woman that caused him problems, because he's going to have some, he has women issues apparently. It's just one of many. That along the way. But this is the first woman in Samson's life. It's funny that we talk about Samson and Delilah, but we often forget this one. We forget the others that are in between the two. He's drawn to how she looks. All right. The thing that throws you off here, at least for me, is that it says God's at work in this. Mm-hmm. But clearly his eye is going to give him a lot of trouble till he loses them. His eyes are going to give him trouble when he's going to lose them. Yeah. How deceitful are our eyes when it comes to attraction?
Oh man. So right now Jess and I are watching a show called Love is Blind on Netflix.
I've heard of it.
Awful show. But anyways, the whole idea of the show though is that the people, they don't get to see each other. They meet each other from behind a wall. And you have to, over the course of 2 weeks, you only get to talk to the person through the wall. You never get to see what any of these people like. And you kind of date them through the wall. And then the only way to see them is if you propose to them. You have to propose them before you ever even see them. And then once you see each other, then the next 2 weeks you're preparing for your wedding. So you've got 2 weeks to date, 2 weeks to prepare for your wedding, and then you can only say yes or no at the altar. Fascinating show, and most people say no at the altar. Thank God, because it is awful. So anyways, the show in many ways I think shows me that love is not necessarily blind. I think it's important. I think you need to be physically attracted to a person. I think it's an important aspect of relationships. But in terms of this, I don't think love should only be visible, visual, And I think that I think our eyes in many ways do deceive us, or we see what we want to see, kind of like we hear what we want to hear, and even sometimes when one aspect of a person or something is, we like it a lot, like for instance, visual, just because we like that aspect of them, everything else seems to be nicer in our eyes, simply because we want everything else to match the thing that we enjoy the most about them. And that can be dangerous. Sometimes it's good when we see the best, like for instance, if someone has a great personality and maybe they're not as attractive, that you can get to know that person and really enjoy that person, even if you don't find them attractive necessarily. That's not that important, in that. But on the other side of things, it can be bad when you just find someone attractive and they're really bad for you. If they're stealing from you or they're mean to you or things like that. But you just find them so attractive that you're willing to disregard all this other stuff because of how good they look. So it can be good and dangerous in the way it's applied.
Jay?
Yes, extremely dangerous. The eyes are deceitful. Scripture speaks to that on various occasions in many ways. And it's not just in human relationships. It is natural that we appreciate certain qualities in certain people more than others. That's the way we are wired. But there's a danger to that. And it's the same thing, if you see a new vehicle going down the road and you have a great admiration, appreciation for it, if you're not careful, that can begin a process to a choice of decisions that lead you to a bad place. Same thing with a house. Or, before you ever envy, I think you see things first and it begins a dialogue in your head. And so the eyes and what you see and how you perceive things can be extremely dangerous.
So I want to be careful how I lay out what I'm getting ready to say here. But recently I was listening to a podcast, and the guest was an expert in Google Trends. So they gave all of these facts. You know, that he had just written a book, something about everybody lies. That's, you know, that they say one thing, but what they're searching for ain't what they say. You know, that everybody lies. He says Google search history. Google knows more about you than the average person does, because what you're searching for is the truth. What you're saying isn't always the truth. So he made this interesting observation based on Google's searches. He says when it comes to dating sites and people looking for dates, he said overwhelmingly they're looking for beauty and weight, skinny and beautiful. He said those are like the two highest rated things. He said, but in the terms of satisfaction, he said those things are not true. He said, so for example, porn searches, when people are searching for satisfaction, they're not, the beauty and weight are not the two things that dictate that. In the statistics about marriage, whether someone's happy in their marriage or not, weight and beauty don't even make the top 5. And he talks about how that in dating, we want to date somebody to impress our friends, but in marriage or satisfaction, we want somebody that actually meets our needs, that satisfies us, that compliments us. And I was fascinated listening him talk about how that the searches, the statistics prove out, you know, that your eyes say one thing because you want the eyes of other people to think one thing. He said, but when you really want, you know, a mate, when you want satisfaction, that it moves way down the list, you know, because it's not nearly as important. And so his eyes deceive him. So he marries her, and this story is a lion jumped out, attacked Samson near the vineyards of Timnah. At the moment, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he ripped the lion's jaws apart with his bare hands. He did it as easily as if it was a young goat. I want to ask y'all a question. Have y'all ever ripped the jaws of a young goat apart, and do you think it would be easy?
Oh, it's easy. Yeah. Now, I have a fear of killing animals. I'll eat them, but I don't want to do that. That sounds horrible. That sounds difficult too.
I mean, like, I don't know how young the goat's got to be.
Yeah.
I guess in comparison to the lion, it would be easy, but I don't think it would be in and of itself.
It says he didn't tell his mother and father about it. No, like if you killed a lion, wouldn't you be telling? I'd tell everybody.
Yeah, like, come on now. Yeah, that's awesome.
He says he talked with the woman. He was very pleased with her. Later, when he returned to Timnah for the wedding, he turned off the path to look at the carcass of the lion, and he found a swarm of bees had made some honey in the carcass. He scooped some of the honey into his hands and ate it along the way. He also gave some to his father and mother, and they ate it, but he didn't tell them that he had taken the honey from the carcass of the lion. So, Zach, you decided you wanted to do some finding out.
Yeah, I had to Google this. My Google search history is very weird because I'm like,
what would Google tell us about?
Yeah, as I talked about on previous podcasts, like, did O.J. Simpson actually, like, you know, I Googled that. I Google like about like weird facts I hear like on TV or Discovery Channel or whatever. But then I did Google, do bees make honey in the carcasses of other animals? And I found there is a type of bee, vulture bees, that actually do that. They eat animal flesh and they make honey within the flesh of the animals. So that is an actual thing that happens. Because I Googled, do they make them in like carcasses of lions? And so that's your interesting fact for the day. If you ever go on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, tell them Zach sent you. If you get that question right.
Yeah. So.
No, I'm just going to say he had an interesting observation. I'm going to have an interesting observation. You mentioned that he didn't tell his parents about the incident with the lion, and if you back up there, it says suddenly attacked him near the vineyards of Timnah. Well, he was under a Nazarite vow. He was not to consume, touch, taste, have anything to do with grapes in any shape, form, or fashion. And I wonder if the mere fact he was in a place that he had no business being doing things that he had no business doing, as innocent as that would seem, then he wouldn't want mom and dad to know about the fact that he'd had this encounter. But,
He might be breaking his vow.
yeah.
Yeah. So, as his father was making the final arrangements for the marriage, Samson threw a party at Timnah, as was the custom for elite young men. So we get that piece of information, that he's not poor. When the bride's parents saw him, they selected 30 young men from the town to be his companions. Samson said to them, "Let me tell you a riddle. If you solve my riddle during these 7 days of celebration, I will give you 30 fine linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing. But if you can't solve it, then you must give me 30 fine linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing." Then he gives them the riddle. And the riddle is, out of one who eats came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. 3 days later, they're still trying to figure it out. On the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, "Entice your husband. This is going to be a pattern right here. That's going to happen over and over again. Entice your husband to explain the riddle for us, or we will burn down your father's house with you in it. Did you invite us to this party just to make us poor?" So why do you think the riddle's about? No, I mean, we know what it's about. What's the purpose of the riddle?
I think he's toying with them, and he's making sport. He's having fun with them. And if they don't guess it, then he's going to come out with a new wardrobe as well. But I think it has more to do with, I'm just going to poke some fun at them, and this is my big deal.
Yeah, I would assume the same thing. I don't know exactly what his angle is, but I mean, maybe he's just thinking it's a quick way to get some nice clothes, Because it is. I mean, it's a weird riddle. It is a difficult riddle because I don't know how common this happens, where bees are making honey in carcasses. Because that'd be really difficult to figure out. He goes full Gollum in this and starts telling riddles, really weird stuff.
And on the surface, it would seem like, okay, if she really loves him and cares about him, she wouldn't sell him out and cause this. But we're given some insight there. It says they threatened, said, "We'll burn your father's house down, and you're going to be in it."
Right.
So this becomes a very serious issue at this point.
And it says they come to her, explain this to us. So they act like giving these 30 robes away is going to make them poor.
Right. It's a big deal apparently.
And so Samson's wife came to him in tears and said, "You don't love me. You hate me." This is kind of a short period of time to have those strong emotions. "You have given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer." "I haven't even given the answer to my father or mother," he replied. "Why should I tell you?" So she cried whenever she was with him and kept it up for the rest of the celebration. And last, on the 7th day, he told her the answer because she was tormenting him with her nagging. Then she explained the riddle to the young men. So should he or should he have not given up the answer?
He shouldn't have told the riddle in the first place. What the heck is this? This is so bizarre. This is so weird. And those people should have accepted why would they have even accepted the riddle terms and conditions in the first place? You should have read them. So it's all so bizarre. Should he have given it to her? I feel like you give the husband-wife answer of, "You should tell your wife everything," right? And in this case, I mean, these guys could have seriously killed her family. That would have been pretty bad. So I feel like, I think he did the right thing telling her the truth, right? That seems like the right thing.
There was communication, but there was not enough communication going on. If she had said to him, they're going to kill me, burn my daddy's house down, he said, "Oh, no, they're not."
He could have gone and been looking at them like, they're jaws.
That's right.
Yeah.
He could have dealt with it had he had.
They got the jaws of young goats.
Enough information in the situation.
It appears she's more loyal to them than she is to him.
Yeah.
I would agree with that because I think she would have shared that additional information, which would have given him the opportunity to take action, and he could have resolved the problem.
Now, maybe she did give him the information. We just don't have that recorded.
Right.
We don't know.
But she cried every time he was around.
Yeah.
I would have stopped coming home.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I would have been like, "No, you stay over there with them."
Now, are they officially? I just don't know the laws about this, but are they? Because this is still within the 7 days of celebration. Are they officially married, or are they officially married after the 7th day?
This is a 30-day party, ain't it?
30 day? I thought it was 7 days.
Well, no, maybe I misread.
Sounds like a fun party. They got honey.
So we get down to the end. The question I have for you, because this is an unusual way for it to be translated in this passage.
Yeah.
They answer it. So before the sunset of the seventh day, because he finally gives in and gives her the answer, she goes back and tells her buddies. And Samson replied, "If you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have solved my riddle." What does that mean?
Plowed.
This translation.
Yeah. Never call a woman a cow. I'm just gonna say that. Just a tip for the guys out there.
Not wise.
Not wise. No.
It's heresy.
It's terrible.
Heresy is what it would be.
If someone said plowed with my heifer, I was very interesting. I'd be like, what? Read the King James version? Yeah, like
Despite his poor use of language here, I think it's as simple as he's saying, if you hadn't manipulated and controlled her, if you hadn't dealt in such a way with her, you would never have gotten the answer, because that was the obvious.
Yeah.
Well, there's a broad group of people who believe that he accused them of sleeping with her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I would have thought. If someone said that to me,
infer that from
plowed with. But that doesn't just sound like just asking questions. I mean, I'm not going to say anything on here. I know there's kids listening, but yeah, I would have thought. That's what I thought. The same thing. If someone said that to me, I'd think that like it would mean sleeping with them.
Going with manipulation and control.
Well, I am going to say that whether she slept with them, whether she was manipulated by them, whether she manipulated Samson or not, the clear picture is that she has more loyalty to somebody else than to the person she's marrying. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned earlier that you should tell your spouse everything. Here's the thing I would tell you. I think sometimes, depending on profession, there are things you can't share. It's just it would be illegal, unethical. Among other things. But you should have no loyalty on this earth to someone any higher than your spouse. Mm-hmm. And loyalty looks different than complete knowledge. I think there has to be some understanding. The loyalty says that I'm going to do what's in your best interest, and what I'm withholding is not. It is in
Could be in your best interest.
Right, yeah. It is in your best interest, But she clearly didn't have that loyalty. Because, she didn't take her long to marry somebody else, because he has a temper tantrum and goes home, but he's furious. He went back home to live with his mom and dad, but it says, so his wife was given in marriage to the man who had been Samson's best man at the wedding. So apparently she was married. There's no clear divorce decree. You ask were they legally married. It says at the wedding he was the best man, and he was given to her. Any significance in that last piece there about him getting mad going home?
I'm glad we don't still do this. That'd be awkward. Someone they leave you at the altar and it's like, now I'm forced to marry the best man. That'd be kind of awkward. That'd be kind of weird.
You would choose your best men's different.
Yes.
Well, one thing it does point out, if he had listened to the advice of his parents earlier when they tried to caution him and said, that's not a good idea. They don't have the same faith, same practices, same customs as we do. You should really look for a different option, but he was insistent. It goes back to the earlier point.
Yeah, but it says God was at work in it. So in this chapter, how do you see God at work?
Even in the midst of poor choices and decisions on everybody's part, God still had an opportunity to show himself, because what we're getting glimpses into with him killing the lion, and he goes down and kills the 30 people to provide the coats, because he keeps good on his vow and promise, and in that regard.
Except he kills 30 people.
That's right.
Are they bad people? That's the question.
He kills 30 people in order to honor.
He didn't just say, I need your rope. I'm just going to kill you and take your rope.
That's it. And
goat's jaws. It's not getting too graphic, but
there's a new commercial for your teens.
Yeah, sorry.
The jaw puller.
The jaw puller.
Think about Jaws, because he
fight with
it. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's this is a baffling story. Mm-hmm. I had quite a few baffling stories to me in the Book of Judges. Yeah. And this is one of them. I do think, for me, what I walk away from this is don't put too much trust, and I'll say this often preaching, don't put too much trust in how somebody looks when you marry them. I don't mean you should marry ugly. That's not what I'm talking about. Like, but if that's number one on your list, you're going to be
It's going to be a weak
broken hearted,
Yeah.
and really, really quick, because we change.
Yeah, that doesn't last.
And the second part of this is loyalty is critical in marriage.
Yeah.
That relationship has to be supreme, really, over everything else on this earth. It's the number one relationship that you have. All right, guys, let's close in prayer. Jay, you want to lead us in prayer today?
Sure. Lord, thank you for taking time in your word to teach us about loyalty and commitment. Thank you that you are always loyal and faithful to your word and promises to us. And may we be faithful and loyal to you in our marriages and in our commitments to other people. May we be known as people who are honorable in that regard. And in doing so, we reflect the character of Jesus more and more. In his name we pray and give thanks. Amen.